Good morning. Start your day informed and ahead. Today is Monday, the 20th of July. I'm Angela Lagunzad-Castro.
We are bringing you the perfect mix of the headlines you need and the conversations that shape your day. From the news desk to the digital space, we have got you covered. I'm Pauline Verzosa and welcome to Morning Matters.
Okay, happy Monday.
Happy Monday to us. How's
your
weekend?
Well, for everybody, I think they all experienced intermittent access to social media yesterday. Diba? Globally, there's a outage nga daw no, ng Facebook and Instagram. So parang nagkaroon ng forced digital detox.
Oo, but parang that did not stop a certain personality, a certain senator from still going live sa Facebook. Mamaya pag-uusapan natin yan. But for today, it's just Angela and I.
Yes.
Si Cesca was busy over the weekend climbing mountains.
Yes.
So good for her.
Reaching goals.
So today she's attending to health matters too. So yeah.
First on the news, the impeachment trial of Vice President Sara Duterte enters its third week today, July 20. The impeachment court is expected to decide whether to grant the House Prosecution Panel's request to subpoena Vice President Duterte's financial and tax records, as well as records from the Anti-Money Laundering Council, or AMLAC. The court deferred its ruling after oral arguments last week, with presiding officer Cesca Litton-Kalaw saying the senator judges need more time to review the prosecution's request. Meanwhile, the prosecution is set to present National Bureau of Investigation Director Melvin Matibag as its final witness on the grave threat charge on Tuesday. So today is the day the court will decide whether they will subpoena the financial records of the Vice President. But legal luminaries have been saying that it is possible that the impeachment court will subpoena the bank records. Ang tanong na lang daw dito, which years will be included, because the prosecution, as we know, is asking from 2007 up to 2025 to establish accumulated wealth, etc. But we'll see what's going to happen, kasi ang magiging process daw niyan, the impeachment court will issue subpoena and then a BIR will request a letter of request from the president so that they'll be able to open the financial box or the BIR box. So we'll see what's going to happen, because we all know there are two motions that we heard. Last week, the prosecution has argued that the accountability must prevail over confidentiality, and that sabi nga nila, ang impeachment court naman is allowed to do that. But of course, on the other side of the fence, sinasabi nila bank secrecy law, diba? They're invoking bank secrecy law. And of course, they're also saying na private citizen yung asawa ni Vice President Sara Duterte. Therefore, hindi pwedeng buklat sa publiko yung kanyang records.
So both sides, you're right, Angela, presented very strong legal arguments when they had their oral arguments last week. But remember, we were talking to Attorney Domingo Cayosa, and he said, technically, the impeachment court doesn't need to override the bank secrecy law, because it actually explicitly provides an exemption for impeachment proceedings. So in terms of bank records, pwede yan tignan ng impeachment court. So magkakatalo dito is the income tax returns of the Vice President. As you mentioned, they're going to need the written approval of the President. And what they will be contending here, a main point of contention, is the relevance of the years that will be covered. But that's important, sabi rin ni Attorney Cayosa, because you need to establish a pattern if she really accumulated wealth throughout the years, and if hindi ba siya nag-declare ng tamang assets and wealth, liabilities in her salience in the past years. And we know this will be central to an article of the prosecution which is centered on the unexplained wealth of the Vice President.
Yes, yun nga lang, dun sa other side of the fence, sinasabi nga nila, 2007 is not yet the time that VP Sara, di ba, as Vice
Yes.
President, kumbaga parang it's not yet a impeachable office. So, of course, yung sinasabi ng prosecution na yung accumulation nga yung kanilang binibigyan ng establishment dito.
So today, no witnesses will take the stand. They will just be ruling on the subpoena, on the oral arguments of both sides. Tingnan natin kung talaga bang makakaabot na yung senator judges sa decision because last week, they were supposed to rule on this already last week, diba? But they had to defer it because napaka-complicated nga daw ng issue na to. But tomorrow, Attorney Melvin Matibag will be taking the stand as a final witness for the prosecution on the article on grave threats. And sabi nila, magkaka-fireworks daw.
Yun yung sinasabi ko, di ba? Parang I'm kind of worried on how this will affect the judgment of the senator judges. Di ba? Because we are expecting them. They should be impartial on this. Pero at first pa lang, nagkakaroon na sila ng hindi pagkakaunawaan ng mismong witness. So we'll see what's going to happen there. But of course, ang sinasabi ng Senate Impeachment Court, they'll be stricter this week and moving forward para daw mas mapabilis yung trial. But of course, notwithstanding yung maintaining the importance of presenting evidence. We'll see what's going to happen. Pauline.
All right. Now, in other news, Senator Ping Lacson is defending his integrity amid his ongoing word war with former Senate President Alan Peter Cayetano. Lacson recalled similar accusations against him during the Arroyo administration, which he said were later retracted by his accusers. He added that informants and witnesses are willing to provide evidence against Cayetano after the former Senate leader allegedly crossed the line by questioning his integrity. Cayetano has yet to respond to Lacson's latest statement. Yan na nga. So I thought it would be a quiet weekend. We all thought it would be a quiet weekend.
No.
So kung hindi nyo pa po nakita, Senator Alan Peter Cayetano took to Facebook to air his grievances and had a word war with Senator Ping Lacson. He actually called Senator Ping a lot of names. Sabi niya, si Senator Ping daw ay imbes na Panfilo Lacson ay Panglito Lacson. He called him a chief persecutor and he claimed na may amo daw si Senator Ping. That's after, of course, Senator Ping here said he will be investigating the flood control anomalies and budget insertions that were allocated for Taguig, which is the bailiwick of the Cayetanos, right? So Senator Alan Peter says wine-weaponize daw yung DOJ and the Office of the Ombudsman and it is not for justice. He also said Senator Ping here is confusing the public and focusing on Taguig when there are also anomalies in cities like Quezon City and Manila, diba? But syempre, pumalag dyan si Senator Lacson because for him, yung integrity na daw niya yung inaatake.
Yeah, and if you can remember, sabi nga niya, parang pinagtatanggol niya kasi yung yung sa SALN niya, di ba? There's an increase daw dun sa wealth nung 2023 and 2024, but he said it is through legitimate means. And we all know naman, since time immemorial, I could remember, mga bata pa tayo noong 2002, binalik ni Senator Ping Lacson yung kanyang pork barrel because since day first nang siya ay naging senator, yan yung laging naalala ko sa mga news na he's really against the pork barrel until it was declared unconstitutional noong 2013. And he also reiterated that he is against allocables and leadership funds because sabi niya yan ay din mga pork barrel din yan. So diyan sila magkakatalo ngayon ni Senator Alan Peter Cayetano pagdating sa usapin ng budget insertions saka yung mga allocables because sabi nga ni Senator Ping Lacson, wala kang makakita sa akin na mga budget insertions at saka yung mga pork barrel na yan hiding under leadership funds and allocables.
Actually, kinorek pa nga ni Senator Ping si Senator Cayetano and he said hindi lang dumoble yung kanyang net worth kundi it was even quadrupled. 4 times pa nga daw because it's not from 58.7 million in 2022 naging 244.9 million in 2025. But that's because of real estate deals, diba? And legitimate deals, negotiations with his business partners. So, mapapatunayan naman daw ni Senator Ping. But On the part of Senator Ping, he said he has evidence already against Senator Cayetano, right? Pertaining to the irregularities, insertions in Taguig. Sabi niya, they've even identified an alleged bagman already.
Yes, yung parang BGC din boys, yung mga sabi niya engineer din sa Taguig. And the flood control issue, the scandal will be investigated again. And I think kasama si PTV4 General Manager Lino Cayetano sa iimbitahan ng Senado, ng Blue Ribbon, to be able to shed light doon sa nangyari sa Taguig, kung meron man kalokohan doon. So, sa akin lang, go ahead, just investigate. Just make sure, diba, you hold people accountable, hindi yung puro salita lang tayo sa investigation. Ang dali naman magsabi na mag-investigate.
Correct,
diba?
oo.
Alright, in other news, ito naman, President Bongbong Marcos's public trust rating declined to 34% in June 2026, according to the latest social weather stations or SWS survey. The poll found that 45% of respondents expressed little trust in the president, while 19% remained undecided. The latest figure marks a 1 percentage point drop from the 35% trust rating recorded in March 2026. It also extends the downward trend from the 64% trust rating Marcos posted in July 2024. Meanwhile, Vice President Sara Duterte maintained a 57% public trust rating in the same survey. However, the share of respondents expressing little trust in the Vice President increased to 27% from 22% in March, while 15% remained undecided. Okay, so parang at this point, usually talaga pag towards the end of the administration, medyo nagkakaroon talaga ng downward or decrease dun sa mga public trust ratings nila, etc. But we wanna know also ano yung extent nitong survey na ito, because sometimes nga sabi nila baka wala pa yung ongoing na impeachment trial sa tinanong ng mga respondent. We'll see what's going to happen, or either that if it's included, the people who support VP Sara is, kumbaga hinihiwalay nila yung legal problem niya doon sa trust nila kay VP Sara. We'll see, 'di ba? We don't know kasi ano talaga extent nitong survey na to.
But at least for when we're talking about President Bongbong Marcos, this is his lowest trust rating since July 2024.
Yes.
And also the highest level of distrust since November 2025. According to Stratbase Institute President Sir Dindo Manhit, this latest result should actually be a wake-up call daw for the administration. And it should also be an opportunity for the Marcos administration to be really clear about what their plan is for the country, diba? We have a lot of issues now, the higher costs of food, of basic goods.
Yes.
We're still
gut issues.
Gut issues, diba? And syempre, nandun pa rin yung issue ng flood control. Accountability, right? It's been almost a year already since we opened this Pandora's box about the flood control scandal.
That's right.
President Bongbong Marcos will be having his State of the Nation address next week on Monday already. So hopefully he'll give us a clearer report on what he intends to do in his last 2 years in office.
And it's also, kumbaga parang one year anniversary,
Oh,
diba?
yeah.
First anniversary
Nung mahiya naman kayo.
nung mahiya naman kayo statement niya. So what has happened after that, yun ang inaabangan also ng mga tao.
All right, and finally, the Bureau of Customs is warning the public against so-called love scams. Under the scheme, scammers befriend victims online, claim to have sent expensive gifts from abroad, then demand payment to release the supposed package from customs. The BOC says its personnel are not authorized to collect fees through personal bank accounts, e-wallets, or remittance centers. The public is urged to verify transactions through official customs channels and report suspicious messages. Right, so these types of scams have gotten even more sophisticated lately, especially with artificial intelligence.
Yes.
Namamanipulate na talaga yung mga documents, and you mapapaniwala ka
Itsura,
talaga.
diba? Sobrang perfect, ang ganda.
And ang part pa daw ng scam na to, sometimes they would even send small gifts, actual gifts. Magpapadala talaga sila. So makakatanggap ka ng gift from your supposed...
Kala mo legit.
Significant other. So, mapapaniwala ka. So, for the public, be more vigilant, right? Always check in official channels. And the BOC also reminds the public that any customs officials cannot receive money through their personal accounts, GCash, Maya, any of those payment channels.
Yun nga no? Kasi parang ginagawa nila talaga, they build relationship muna, they build rapport doon sa binibiktima nila. And then ikaw naman, maniniwala ka na, oo nga, kailangan niya ng pera ngayon, pahiramin muna kita, gano'n na nangyayari. And according to Cybercrime Investigation and Coordinating Center, CICC, they received 123 formal complaints with love scam cases, typically climbing from January to February. At saka ito, this is interesting June and October. Ito daw yung periods when people are more likely to seek friendship or online relationship. Kasi January to February, Valentine's Day. Diba? Pa October, pa Pasko na. Yung mga malamig ang Pasko. Ganon.
So ito yung time na naghahanap talaga sila.
So parang vulnerable sila. And then sabi nung Scam Watch Pilipinas, I was looking at it kanina, may meron silang mga tinatarget na individuals. No? Sabi nila, one would be adults seeking foreign partners who are seen as ticket to a better life. Yung parang, kailangan ko ng aangat sa buhay, yung ganyan, tutulong sa akin, ganyan. Tapos two would be financially stable professionals naman, pero may difficulty finding their match in real world. Kumbaga parang successful naman sila, pero wala silang love life. Career successful sila, pero yun nga, walang love life. Number three, women pressured to marry as the biological clock. So pag sinabi, 30 ka na, ba't di ka pa nag-aasawa? So parang nape-pressure sila. So isa daw yan sa mga na manipulate nung mga scammers. And then men struggling with rejection. And then solo parents looking for a companion who may ease some of their burden. So yun yung mga list of the tina-target ng mga nagmamanipulate online or mga online scammers. So yun ang sinasabi natin, don't immediately trust those who are online, who are talking to you. And maigi pa rin yung sinasabi sa atin ng mga bata tayo, no? Don't talk to strangers.
Yeah. At the end of the day, no, even if the digital space is right there, it's very convenient. You can talk to people from the other side of the world. Be very vigilant still because these are the emotions that these scammers exploit, diba? Yung vulnerability ng tao.
Yeah. How ironic also that during the pandemic, ang social media, diba, built bridges, diba, doon sa atin. Pero ngayon ginagamit ng mga scammers nila. Ay, nako. Don't go away. Morning Matters will be back after a short break.
Welcome back. You're still watching Morning Matters here on One News. The impeachment trial of Vice President Sara Duterte enters its 7th day today, with the Senate Impeachment Court expected to rule on requests for her bank and tax records. And for the latest, we now go live to our mobile journalist, Arles de los Santos. Arles, what can you tell us?
Pauline, sa ngayon ay tahimik pa at kakaunti pa ang tao dito sa Senado para sa ikapitong araw ng impeachment trial ni Vice President Sara Duterte, kung saan mamaya 2:00 ay aabangan natin kung pagbibigyan nga ba o hindi ng Senate Impeachment Court ang hiling ng prosekusyon na ipasabina ang mga tax at bank records ni Vice President Sara Duterte maging ng kanyang asawa na si Attorney Cesca Litton-Kalaw. Matatandaan natin, Pauline, na nitong nakaraang linggo, Miyerkules, bago nga magtapos ang ika-6 na araw ng impeachment, ay nagpresenta ng kanilang mga panig at posisyon ang prosekusyon at depensa kung dapat nga bang ipasabina itong mga bank at tax records ni Vice President Sara Duterte. Para sa prosekusyon, nila ay dapat daw isabina itong mga bank at tax records ni Vice President Sara dahil ito raw ang magpapakita or naglalaman ng katotohanan at marapat daw na gamitin ng Senate Impeachment Court ang kapangyarihan na binigay dito ng konstitusyon at kasama daw dyan ang pagbubukas nga ng mga financial activities and records ni VP Sara. Gayon naman, sa panig ng depensa ay nagsalita si Attorney Michael Powa kasama sa legal counsel ni VP Sara kung saan sinabi na marapat ang lahat ng hakbang ng Senate Impeachment Court ay naaayon sa due process at hindi daw dapat itong magamit para sa isang fishing expedition. Iginit din nila na pinagbabawal ng batas ang pag-disclose ng sinuman na mga taxpayers, yung records nito. Kabukod dyan, hindi raw kasama yung mga record ni VP Sara noong 2007 mula siya ay Vice Mayor hanggang sa bago siya umupo bilang Vice President dahil hindi raw ito mga impeachable of position. Hindi raw ito impeachable position habang ang kanya namang asawa na si Attorney Cesca Litton-Kalaw ay isang pribadong individual kaya hindi dapat buksan ang bank at tax records nito. Pauline.
Okay, so Arles, no witnesses will be taking the stand today, So what can we expect tomorrow?
Bukas po na inaasahan natin na haharap nga no, si NBI Director Melvin Matibag kung saan nga ito yung huling witness na haharap para sa Article 4 of Impeachment para sa umunoy grave threats inciting to sedition na alegasyon laban kay Vice President Sara Duterte. Inaasahan natin ang magiging posisyon ni Matibag at kung iinog nga lang ba no, dito sa Senate impeachment mga allegation ang pagharap ni Matibag dahil alam naman natin na recently ay may mga push and pull no, at palitan sa kanila ni Senator Judge Alan Peter Cayetano na tila nga para sa Senator Judge ay tila meron nga raw na iniisa-isa sa kanila no, at timing nga daw itong sinabi ni Matibag na pag-imbestiga kaukol doon sa 2019 SEA Games habang pagkatapos naman ni Matibag kung matapos siya sa cross-examination, sa presentation, recross at yung muling pagtatanong ng prosekusyon no, inaasahan natin na bago matapos ang araw bukas Tuesday ay magsisimula ng pag-usapan ng Article 1 of Impeachment ni Vice President Sara Duterte para doon sa umunoy paggamit ng confidential at intelligence funds na nagkakahalaga ng 612.5 billion pesos. Pauline.
All right, thank you very much for that update. That was mobile journalist Arles de los Santos. Several groups are expected to stage protests today as the impeachment trial of Vice President Sara Duterte enters its third week. And now for the latest on the situation outside the Senate, we have our mobile journalist Francis Rivera. Francis, may mga protesters na ba dyan ngayong umaga?
Good morning, Pauline. Yes, kanina 8 a.m., pasado 8 a.m. Ay nagsagawa ng kilos protesta at ang grupo o ang grupong samahan ng progresibong kabataan o yung tinatawag nilang SPARK dito sa harapan mismo ng Senate, dito sa entrance ng Senado. At hindi naman sila nagtagal at hindi naman sila ganong karamihan. Hindi bababa nga sa 10 miyembro nito ang nagsagawa ng programa dito at matapos lamang yung around 15 or 10 to 15 minutes, natapos na rin yung sinagawa nilang programa at ang hawak-hawak nga nila yung kanilang mga placard no kanina kung saan ang panawagan nila ay Sara Duterte panagutin and elite and dynastic rule, and ang kanilang pangunahing panawagan nga ay yung full disclosure ng tax records at bank accounts ni Vice President ng Vice Presidente at isa rin doon sa sinasabi nila isa rin daw kasi ito sa aksyon na maaaring magbigay ng clarity and accountability para sa mga aligasyon at na patungkol nga dito kay Vice President Sara Duterte. At maayos naman silang nag-disperse kanina. Medyo nagkaroon lang ng konting komosyon sa pagitan nga ng security dito sa harapan ng Senado dahil kanina nga kasi talaga pinarangan nila itong gitnang portion nitong entrance kung saan hindi makalabas naman o yung mga sasakyan galing doon sa loob ng Senado. Kaya medyo nagkaroon lang ng sagutan at pero tahimik, taimtim at payapa naman yung naging kanilang yung ginawa nilang programa at payapa rin sila nag-disperse kanina. At ngayon naman inaasahan din natin na may darating pang mga ilang grupo at yun ang nakikita natin sa ngayon ang sitwasyon dito naghahanda naman na ang mga kapulisan kanina ayon sa NCRPO nasa 25 lamang yung kapulisan na nagbabantay para nga dito sa seguridad sa paligid ng Senado. Pero ngayon nakikita ko na Pauline doon na naglalagay na sila ng mga razor wire barricade. Ito pakita natin doon sa may itong gitnang palapit sa may itong side na to kung saan nga papunta itong kumbaga northbound papunta doon sa may film center at nakita na rin tayo doon sa may side kung saan nagdagdag pa ng mga kapulisan na dineploy dito sa labas ng Senado.
All right, thank you very much for that report. That was mobile journalist Francis Rivera reporting. 4 police officers, including the chief of the San Rafael Municipal Police Station in Bulacan, have been relieved and are facing charges after a bungled arrest operation mistakenly targeted the wrong man. Meanwhile, the Philippine National Police is ramping up security preparations for President Bongbong Marcos's 5th State of the Nation address next week. Mobile journalist Jazz Paredes has this report.
A businessman had just walked out of a restaurant in Baliwag, Bulacan at noon on Thursday. He thought his parked vehicle had been hit. But as he approached the highway, several men in civilian clothes suddenly grabbed him and tried to force him into a red vehicle. His female companion, along with people at the restaurant, intervened and stopped the men. What first appeared to be a kidnapping was later confirmed to be a legitimate police operation. 3 police officers from the San Rafael Municipal Police Station were serving a warrant of arrest, but they had targeted the wrong person.
It's a actual police operation, but the police operation is not following the correct procedure na pag-aresto, not following the police operational procedure.
The 3 officers, along with their chief of police, have been relieved of their posts and are now facing administrative charges.
Are now in hot water. They've been relieved of their posts. They were assigned to regional holding unit and facing administrative and criminal cases, including the concerned head of office or the chief of police o yung mga opisyal na nagsusupervise sa kanila.
The 3 officers also underwent incest proceedings after criminal complaints were filed against them, including physical injuries, unjust vexation, grave coercion, slander by deed, and attempted kidnapping. Following the incident, the Philippine National Police ordered all police commanders to strengthen supervision and closely monitor personnel during operation. Meanwhile, with just a week before President Bongbong Marcos' 5th State of the Nation address on July 27, more than 20,000 personnel will be deployed across Metro Manila to secure the event.
Yung comprehensive security plan po natin ay nakalatag na. Initially, we are deploying 20,000 personnel para po sa zona. More than 20,000. This includes our allied or yung augmentation from other agencies like the AFP, the Coast Guard. Kung hindi ko lang mabanggit, meron pa pong mga iba tayong mga kasama dito. And of course, kasama na rin po dito yung ating yung reaction teams.
NCRPO spokesperson Police Major Hazel Asilo said civil disturbance management personnel will also be deployed to areas where protest rallies are expected. As of Friday, authorities had monitored about 4 groups from Quezon City seeking permits to hold rallies. The groups and their designated areas have yet to be finalized.
Regarding po dun sa kanilang mga designated areas, ifa-finalize pa po natin yan based po dun sa mga ma-approve na permit dahil aalamin po natin kung ilan yung kanilang mga expected attendees para po malaman natin kung alin-alin pong area yung possible po na gagamitin nila, na i-allow po natin para po sa kanila.
Don't go away because Money Talks with Kathy Yang is up next to get you ahead of the markets. I'm Pauline Verzosa. Stay tuned to One News.
Good morning mga kapatid. You are still watching Morning Matters here on One News. Now, as we know, the Senate Impeachment Court is set to vote this afternoon on the prosecution's request to subpoena the bank and tax records of Vice President Sara Duterte and her husband, Manasseh Scarpio. Prosecutors say the documents are crucial to provide or proving allegations of unexplained wealth, while the defense calls the request an overly broad fishing expedition. Meanwhile, the Philippine National Police is finalizing security preparations for President Marcos' State of the Nation address on July 27. At least 20,000 police officers are expected to be deployed, with authorities also preparing for traffic and expected protest actions.
Now, what could the ruling on the so-called BIR box mean for the trial and for the country's political landscape? Well, joining us this morning is none other than our political pundit, Mr. Ronald Llamas. Good morning, Sir Ronald. Thank you.
Good morning,
for gracing
Pauline.
us with your
Good morning,
presence.
Angela, my favorite morning show. Dahil tulog pa yung utak ko by this time.
At least you're here, di ba? Our resident, Dalai Llamas.
Oo. Nako,
Okay.
Monday na Monday. Marami po tayong aabangan today. It's the 3rd week of the impeachment trial, the 7th day, and aabangan po talaga natin yung magiging desisyon ng
Yes.
senator judges pagdating dun sa subpoenaing of financial records. Gaano po ba ka-importante yung araw na ito, Sir Ronald?
Tingin ko this is the most important day, no? Second dun sa voting itself. Partly dahil marami doon sa mga articles of impeachment, medyo alam na natin eh. Napanood natin lahat yung grave threats. Nakita natin yung confidential fund for several months, no? Inimbestigahan yan. Nakita rin natin yung bribery. Ang hindi pa natin nakikita, ano ba talaga laman ng mga bank accounts? Ito ba ay game changer dito sa impeachment? Saan ba nang galing yung mga pera? Kung sakaling may laman nga, nasabi ng AMLAC, may several billions, no? 7 billion mahigit. So, unang-una, yan ay hindi tugma sa salin. Ikalawa, saan yan ang galing? No? Ikatlo, ano pa yung iba? Wala pa dyan yung ibang properties eh. Mga lupa, mga kotse, mga painting, mga alahas, etc. At possibly, iba pang mga secret bank accounts. So, game changer yan. Dahil that might shape the court of public opinion and that might shape yung political calculations ng mga senador. At panghuli, yung botohan mamaya. Pero pagbobotohan yan eh. No? Simple majority of those present. Hindi yung Senate. Pagbobotohan nila kung bubuksan, ililift yung bank secrecy laws. So makikita mo indicatively paano yung boto ng mga senador going into the end of the impeachment several months from now. No? Iyan yung decisive voting na mangyayari. Ang alam ko nga, may mga magrarally mamaya sa Senado.
Meron na
Kagabi, may nagrally na sa Liwasan, mukhang pupunta ron, and others, to give pressure dun sa kanilang mga kakampi. No? Kaya, again, an interesting week. No? Sana hindi naman tayo mabore sa mga objections. No?
Well, sabi nga nila, this is going to be the Senate's first crucial test if they will decide or not to open the BIR or subpoena the bank records of the Vice President. But of course, if we will pattern the process from the impeachment trial of the late Justice Corona, ang nangyari daw po doon ay sinumpina yung kanyang records and then BIR then asked the president, which is Pinoy, to write a written request. Kasi legally, hindi pwede ang mga BIR officials to divulge yung mga bank records ng mga tao. So if this going to happen here, in this impeachment trial, at mag-request ng letter mula kay President Bongbong Marcos, what if hindi magbigay ng letter si President Bongbong Marcos? Because sinasabi nga niya initially, ayaw ko makialam sa impeachment.
Eh di hindi man bubuksan yung green box. Pero mukhang ginawa kasi nila, inayos nila yung proseso. Nung una kasi parang yung Justice Committee ang magbibigay ng green box sa Senate. Ang sabi ng Senate, hindi, dapat kami ang mag-request niyan. Kaya sinole. At nag-request sila. At syempre, yung BIR, motu proprio on its own, cannot do that. So, hihingiin nila yung approval ng presidente. Syempre, nagdidili-dali yung presidente. Dahil sabi nga
Politically,
niya,
what would it look like for him?
Co-equal branch yan. Pero tingin ko tama yung proseso. Kaya maingat yung Senado na yung proseso galing sa Congress ay hindi yun ang tamang proseso. Dapat ibalik nila at mismo yung executive ang magpasya.
Pero should the president write a request
Tingin
to
ko
open
he
it?
will. Tingin ko he will. Dahil very crucial ito eh. At saka mukhang kumpara dun sa impeachment a year ago, dito mas supportive siya. No? Kumpara dun sa nakaraan. Kaya tingin ko, yung logical na choice is bigyan na letter, yung BIR, para ibigayan doon sa Senate as a trial court. Actually, hindi ko masyadong maunawaan what's all the fuss. No? But ano yung tinatago
Kung may
mo?
tinatago,
Diba?
wala. Might as well take a look at it.
Yes,
Oo.
yes.
Pero Sir Ronald, gaano ba kahalaga na makita yung tax records nga ni VP Sara? Kasi nga, napaka-strict nung rules when it comes to yung income tax returns, yung records na yan, ano? But, ang pwede tignan, ang clear na may exemption ay yung bank secrecy law. So yan, makikita talaga yung bank records ni VP Sara. Do you think may establish pa rin ng prosecution yan?
Magko-complement yan dun sa unexplained wealth kung meron. Dahil ito lang yung binayaran mo, buwis, ito lang yung salin mo, pero ito yung kayamanan mo. Baka makasuhan ka pa ng tax evasion. Di ba? Dahil yung naalala nyo dun sa The Godfather, o yung iba pa, The Untouchables, hindi mo makasuhan yung mga mafia, no, ng murder.
Sa tax dinali.
Dinali mo sa tax evasion. No? Yun. Kaya pwedeng route yan papunta ron. Pero yan, tingin ko at this point, yan ay gagamitin to complement yung fourth article of impeachment, yung unexplained
Unexplained
wealth.
wealth.
Oo. Hindi siya yung pinakamahalaga. Pinakamahalaga pa rin talaga yung laman ng mga bank accounts. Pero magko-complement siya. Ito lang yung binayaran na buwis eh. No? Bakit wala yan sa SALN? O kaya ay bakit wala yan dun sa mga bank accounts? Kung ganito karami, 7 billion, dapat may buwis yun. Yung ganun ba?
Pero sa iyo ba, Sec Ronald, nakaka-third week na tayo ng impeachment. Sabi nga nila, 1 article of impeachment down, 3 more to go. Diba? At sinabi ng prosecution, kaya nila inuna na itong grave threat na to because mas madaling maintindihan ng mga tao.
Yes.
Pero sa iyo, Sec Ronald, ano yung pinaka-mabigat na article of impeachment? Sa tingin mo talagang would definitely nail the Vice President?
Well, lahat yan magko-complement sa isa't isa. Isa lang naman ang kailangan mo para ma-impeach.
Yes.
Pero magko-complement yan eh. No? Ang pinag-uusapan kasi dyan, capable ba yung Vice President na maging Vice President? No? Yun yung hindi ito pinag-uusapan dito yung
Criminal intent.
Yung criminal intent o kaya yung pinakamataas na level ng evidence beyond reasonable doubt. Ang pinag-uusapan dito, fit ba siya to be a Vice President? So pag nag-complement yan sa isa't isa at meron kang isang malakas na smoking gun, then very compelling yan. So kung meron mga senador na for usapin ng loyalty ay ayaw siyang i-convict o ayaw pansinin yung ebidensya, merong court of public opinion na mag-i-influenza sa kanila. Sinasabi ko, hindi lang yung ebidensya. Yung ebidensya as it impacts on public opinion. Na in a way, the more important court dito. No? Dahil hindi naman talaga itong mga judges, mga politicians ito.
Right.
Ang titignan nila sa kanilang political calculation, yung mood ng tao. Dahil, halimbawa, 4 or 5 of them will be re-electionists.
Yes.
Some of them might aspire for higher position. No? So, very important yung court of public opinion sa kanilang political calculation.
Pero Sir Ronald, speaking of public opinion, despite the controversies and itong impeachment trial ni VP Sara, ay mukhang mataas pa rin yung trust ratings niya. There's that recent survey kung saan sinabi na 57% of Filipinos said they still had much trust in the Vice President.
Yes. Well, una ay hindi naman nagbago yung kanyang trust rating doon sa previous survey. No? So, ibig sabihin, plateau yan. Pa-plateau. Hindi naman nagbabago. Ikalawa, usually ang Vice President hindi sinisisi sa problema ng bansa. Dahil hindi naman ikaw yung nagpapatakbo ng bansa, yung Presidente. No? Ikatlo, ay napigilan yung free fall ng Presidente. From negative 50, naging negative 7. Ibig sabihin, nag-improve ng 8% yung kanya. Kaya hindi naman siya total loss dito. Negative pa rin, pero napigilan yung free fall. Yun ang delikado eh. Yung hindi na mapigilan yung tuloy-tuloy na pagbasa. Kung ilang survey cycle, baba ka pa rin ng baba, mag-free fall ka. At least dito napigilan, umangat siya. No? At saka, panghuli, wala kasing alternative sa Vice President pa eh. Yung Presidente hindi naman kandidato eh. So sinusukat yung Vice President kumpara sa Vice President. Hindi pa siya sinusukat dun sa sino ba makakalaban niya sa 2028. Pag baseball pot siyang makakalaban, then pwedeng magbago yan. Halimbawa, sa preferential surveys for President, mataas si Raffy Tulfo. 8 percentage point lang yung lamang ni Lenny kay Sara. Ibig sabihin, ito mga nagsabi, hindi sila tatakbo, pero halos pantay yung boto na yan. Pag isa dyan nagsabi, sige, tuloy na ako, maapektuhan si Sara, na siya pa lang ang nagsabi na tatakbo.
Well, since as long as I can remember, Secretary, no, kapag ang mga presidente medyo in the latter part of their administration na, talagang bumababa, nagkakaroon ng decrease ang survey nila, di ba? Oo, kasi sabi nga nila, patapos na, and this is the time na yung mga tao naniningil na dun sa mga pinangako, di ba? And do you think that this represent the total mood, overall mood of the Filipino in 5 years into the administration of President Bongbong Marcos? And meron pa bang pag-asa maiba yung narrative or mabawi ni President Bongbong Marcos yung ganitong klaseng pagbaba niya? O dire-diretso na to?
Well, yes. Yung una mong tanong, reflective talaga ito sa mood ng mga tao. Dahil kasabay-sabay yung mga crisis. No? Meron kang crisis ng corruption, unprecedented, the most massive in our history, hundreds of billions.
Right.
No? Hirap bilangin eh. No? Ikalawa, crisis sa economy, both internal at external. Malaking bahagi, yung Iran War, of course. No? Naiwanan tayo ng ating neighbors in terms of inflation, employment, growth rate, no? Etc. So, medyo malaki yung problema natin dito. Lalo na, hindi pa natatapos yung Gulf War. No? Ikatlo ay yung weakening ng ating institutions. Almost all our institutions, wala nang tiwala yung mga tao. No? Congress, Senate, Supreme Court, Executive. No? Kaya nga maraming nagpo-propose na reset, revolutionary government. Dahil nga, kita nag-weaken. No? Kaya itong mga crisis na ito, nag-i-impact yan primarily sa gobyerno. Hindi naman yan mag-i-impact sa atin. Hindi naman tayo nagpapatakbo. Kaya ganyan yung intensity ng political landscape. No? Pero may pag-asa pa bang umangat yan? Of course. Halimbawa, kung mapapakulong niya yung substantially yung mga binanggit na 15 huge contractors involved sa anomaly. Nasa ngayon, 0.5 pa lang yung nakukulong. Kalahati lang yung Vizcaya. Tapos yung makukulong niya yung nabanggit na 67 congressman na involved sa corruption. Kahit hindi yun, magpakulong ka lang ng 5. Di ba? Makita na, makita na nagkukang ka, di ba? May ginagawa ka. No? Or more senators. Halimbawa, si Ping Lacson, very specific yung bilanggit niya, no? 6.79 billion insertions ni Alan Peter ang iniimbestigahan nila. Allegedly, 25% ang kickbacks. Alam na kung sino yung bagman, etc., etc. So, ibig sabihin, hindi pa tapos ito. No? Hindi pa tapos itong investigasyon. Magsisimula pa lang ulit sa next week, yung Blue Ribbon, kasabay ng impeachment. No? So,
alam mo na.
Well, Sir Ronald, since dinala mo na rin yung talakayan natin dyan sa World War ni Senator Ping Lacson and ni Senator Alan Peter Cayetano, what are your thoughts? Ang dami nilang sinabi over the weekend. Senator Cayetano, tinawag niya si Sen Ping na Panglito Lacson, di ba? Yung mga ganang chief prosecutor.
Si Attorney Melvin Matibag, Binyon.
Oo.
Name names. Or name.
Kinakabahan ako kung itatawag niya sa akin.
Sa'yo, ano ba? Meron na ba? Meron na ba? Well, na-call out lang dati.
Balimbing na basta something. No? Yung tinawag ko siyang Chinador. No? Etc. So, tingin ko ay matagal na ito No? Matagal na itong mga indications na ito. Napabilis lang dahil nga binanata ni Alan Peter si Ping Lacson. Kaya si Senator Ping, pag kumagat yan, hindi yan bumibitaw Investigador yan Ang hirap lang niyang banata ng corruption ng pinapahiwatig ni Alan Peter. May maleta, no? Tumaas daw yung salen, no? Etc. Mahirap dahil walang pork barrel yan Yan yung senador na never kumuha ng pork barrel. No? At hindi yan na-link sa corruption. No, ito ang sali niya, pinaliwanag niya kung bakit lumaki. Sabi nga niya, mali yung
hindi lang doble.
Hindi lang doble. No? Siya pa nag-correct, di ba? So, mahirap dumikit kay Ping Lacson yung usapin ng corruption. No? At dahil investigador yan, talagang tutugisin ka niyan. No? Yan yung role niya sa Senate. Kaya siya yung bumubusisi ng budget. Siya yung nakakita ng mga double reporting, triple, quadruple. No? Siya yung naglalabas yan. Kaya nakakatipid tayo ng several hundred billions because of his expose sa budget. No? Kaya ngayon, hindi ko sasabihin na wala siyang basihan. Of course, kailangan pa natin makita. Pero very specific yung sinabi niya. 6.79 billion insertions, 25% kickbacks, no? Tapos parang sinusuportahan ng kapatid na dating mayor ng Taguig na meron ng ganong klaseng corruption. Hindi siya usapin ng ghost Yung ibig sabihin, totally wala. Usapin yan ng, halimbawa, 70% hindi na-deliver or 50% hindi na-deliver. Yun yung usapin dyan No?
Unfinished.
Hindi lang unfinished. Ibig sabihin, kinatkong yung budget. Pag kinuha mo ng picture, meron. Pero pag tinignan mo yung ilalim, kawayan. Yung ganun ba? Parang sa Cebu nakita ko, imbis na bakal yung nilagay kawayan. No? Parang yung mga, yung tawag doon, yung eye sa kalsada, sa Baguio, several hundred times overpriced, di ba? Yung netting. Yung ganun. So makikita mo, meron. Pero yung na-deliver, 10-20% lang. No? Ganyan yung Ghost ba yan? Technically hindi, dahil nandun
Meron
Pero massive yung corruption. Diba? Massive yung corruption. Yun yung sabi ni Ping Lacson na iimbestigahan niya. Tingin ko lalong nagalit dahil very condescending at saka patronizing sa kanya si Alan Peter, no? Sayang daw dahil kung tatakbo daw uling presidente, iboboto niya. Dahil meron daw katotohanan, may truth na lumalabas pa sa kanyang katawan. No? Sabihin, pag ako sabihan, no, magagalit talaga ako, very patronizing. Akala mo, pinupuri ka, yung pala iniinsulto ka, no?
patronizing.
Na iba?
May ganon.
Ang problema, ang atake ni Alan Peter, mas personal. Diba? Ang atake nila Ping Lacson, mas evidence-based. Kaya yung susunod na kabanata o mga kabanata, makikita pa natin sa mga darating na linggo.
Magkakabukasan na yan.
Oo, never a dull moment. No?
Oo, yun yung gusto ko tanong sa'yo, Sec Ronald. Kasi, what you make of these senator judges that are, ano mo yun, nagbabangayan outside the impeachment court? Number one, of course, itong si Attorney Melvin Matibag is set to appear tomorrow. Diba? So, how will this affect yung, kumbaga, we are expecting kasi that the senator judges would be impartial pagdating sa impeachment court. So, how will this affect that? First pa lang, kakaumpisa pa lang, nag-aaway na sila, even the witness. Diba? Parang no matter kung ano man sabihin ni NBI Director Melvin Matibag, I think the opposition or the Cayetano bloc has made up their minds already.
Yes. Definitely may impact yan. Dahil sabi ko nga kanina, nawiweaken na yung ating institutions this past few years, di ba? Kaya may impact yan. Kumbaga, kung may gewang na nga, tapos lalabas pa yan, lalo na. May lang kasi ako nakakita ng Senado na kalahati may kaso. From obstruction of justice, to malversation, to plunder, to corporate crimes, to even crimes against humanity. Ngayon ako nakakita niya with my 45 years in politics. No? Kaya talaga magulo. Dahil kalahati may kaso Hindi yan selective justice dahil kayo lang yung may kaso Wala namang kaso sila Risa, sila Bam, sila Kiko, sila Ping, sila Win, etc. No? So ba't po sasabihin selective? Kayo yung may kaso even before the impeachment. Hindi naman nangyari itong kaso ngayong impeachment Dati pa yan Testimony yan ni Undersecretary Bernardo, Engineer Alcantara, Engineer Bryce Hernandez, etc. So, hindi mo pwedeng sabihin na selective. Lalo na halimbawa yung kay Marcoleta, ikaw yung umamin So, yun yung mahirap dito. Kung totoo yung sinasabi ni Ping na merong ganong klaseng insertions at ganong klaseng kickback, no? Wag ka what about TC? Sabi kasi ni Alan Peter, what about Manila? What about Quezon City, no? Iba yun no? Kung may investigasyon yun, then let the chips fall where they may. Pero dito kasi, ikaw yung iniimbestigahan. At saka, by the way, hindi ka naman mayor. Ba't hindi yung asawa mo sumagot, di ba? Siya yung mayor no? Kaya, lalo nagiging totoo na, baka nga may insertions. Di ba? Ultra sensitive di ba? Dapat chill ka lang.
Pero para lang masabi natin na for the sake of fair argument, di ba? Balance argument natin. Sinasabi nga nila, sige, sabi mo dahil lahat ng mga senator ay sangkot sa mga kaso, karamihan sa kanila.
Minority.
Si Senator Marcoleta, hindi naman flood control ang bilis. Mas nauna pa daw. Yun ang kanilang argument. Mas nauna pa silang ipakulong kesa dun sa mga nagnakaw sa may flood control scandal. So, anong masasabi?
Well, una, kailangan ng smoking gun Ang nag-provide kasi ng smoking gun kay Marcoleta, siya
Sarili
mismo.
niya.
Sobrang galing niyang abogado, napakulong niya yung sarili niya. No? Hindi ako nakakita ng abogado na ganun kagaling. No? Ikalawa, ay yung iba kasi naghahanap pa ng smoking gun Halimbawa, si Gutesa wala Yung 18 Marines, nawasak yung testimony Dahil ang daming dagdag bawas ng mga kinuhan. So, perhaps yung kanilang testimony na totoo, naapektuhan yung hindi totoo. So, nasan yung smoking gun? Tingin ko yun yung magiging role ni Bonoan. Kaya siya kinuwang state witness. Idadamay niya yung iba. Siya yung magiging smoking gun. No? Tingin ko yun yung mangyayari. Ang problema ngayon, alam mo, maraming corrupt. Pero nasan yung ebidensya? Dito kasi sa mga ito, nakalabas yung ebidensya.
Kaya mabilis makapagsampa.
Binigyan si Bong Revilla ng ganitong several hundred million sa bahay niya. Binigyan si Jinggoy ng several hundred million sa bahay niya. Yung ganun ba? May smoking gun. Kaya, pero bottom line, nangyari ba yan? No? Halimbawa, yung Southeast Asian Games.
Oo, na-bring up pa yun
Actually, buhay na kaso yun. No?
Ongoing siya.
Ongoing
Hindi
yun.
naman sila
Yung kay
na
Vince Dizon,
napag-investigate.
na-decision na niya ng 2021 ng Ombudsman. Yung sa PSOC ba yun? PSCOC?
PSCOC.
Yun, tuloy yun. Active case yun. No? Kaya ang dapat sagutin dyan ay inupuan ng previous ombudsman. No? Yung parang parmali. Diba? Inupuan. Andun yung kaso. Pero inupuan eh. No? Ngayon, kung lalabas yan, selective justice ba yan? May pinanggalingan eh. May kaso talaga. No? Baka yung nangyari, yung bilis. No? Yung bilis. Dahil in the real world, talaga naman nangyayari yun. No? Di ba?
Pero Sir Ron, I guess yun din yung pinapoint out nga rin nung kampo nila Senator Cayetano na the wheels of justice against them are moving much faster. Siguro kailangan din patunayan ng ombudsman na he can go after also the
Yes.
after the allies
Other.
of the president, 'di ba? Kahit yung pinsan niya si former Speaker Romualdez, ano na ba talaga yung nangyari sa kaso,
Yes,
sa
yes.
case build up kahit kay Senator Cheese Escudero.
Yes, oo. Yung tingin ko yung kaso nila hindi mawawala. No, naghahanap lang ng smoking gun. Yung kay Joel Villanueva mas abante na. Dahil may preliminary investigation na. Yung kay Cheese wala pa. No, wala pa.
Case build-up
Tapos
pa.
initially, yung kaso niya sa COMELEC ay tinapon na ng COMELEC. Kaso may nagsampa pa uli ng kaso eh. No? So, yun yung proseso ron, no? Hindi tinuloy yung kaso niya, no? Meron pa, pending pa, no? Sa COMELEC at sa Ombudsman. Pero wala pang PI. Yung kay Joel meron na. Yun yung pwedeng tignan. Magpo-proceed ba yung kay Joel o hindi? No? Pero ang sinasabi ko nga, baka si Bonoan yung smoking gun. No? Dahil sekretary siya ng DPWH, namatay si Cabral eh. Dati kasi ang smoking gun, si Cabral sana eh. No? Namatay. So, si Bonoan na yan. No? Ang kailangan pabilisin din. Tama ka, no? Sa usapin na yan.
Okay, before we let Sir Ronald go, 1 week na lang po, Fifth State of the Nation address na ni President Marcos. Ano po bang dapat natin abangan? Kayo, ano pong inaabangan niyo po?
Well, ang ginagawa ngayon, pinapump prime yung economy ng ayuda, ng AIX, no? Ng iba pang mga tulong. No? Dahil nga, kung yung fundamentals ng economy ay bagsak, so kailangan mong ipump prime. Ang tanong dyan, sustainable ba yan? With a weak fiscal space, konti ang revenues mo, laki ng deficit mo, masusustain ba yan? Lalo na tumatagal yung gera. No? Duda ako kung kakayanin. Pero yan, mag-i-impact yan sa SONA. Ano ba yung bubuhusan mo with your remaining savings? Ano yung i-realign mo papunta rito? Dahil hindi pwedeng magutom yung tao. Sabi mo, umangat yung bansa as a middle income country. Pero 52% ng mga tao, ang tingin sa sarili nila, mahihirap. So yung ganong klaseng gap, kailangan ma-mitigate mo kahit konti, no, in the next few months. Dahil in 2 months time, harvest time, tataas ang presyo ng bilihin. Dahil tumaas yung presyo ng inputs. Yung inputs ng fertilizer, ng gasolina. So aasahan mo, in 2 months, yung inflation mo na mataas na, record high na, almost 7%, tataas pa. No? So, ang sino sisisihin dyan? Yung gobyerno. No? Pero yung elephant in the room, yung corruption. Dahil dyan, outrage sa mga tao. No? At sabi ni Ombudsman Boying Remulla, ay meron siyang kakasuhan at hulihin in the next week. No? Last week na to so na eh. Yun din ang promisa niya last December.
Yes.
Yun din ang promisa niya last March.
Mag-iisang taon na
last
ngayong
May.
kanyang mahiya naman kayo.
Diba? Kaya kasama yan sa weakening ng ating institutions. Dahil ganyan yung ating judicial system eh. Sabi nga ni former Senator Drilon, sabi niya, kung tinanong nila ako, hindi ako magbibigay ng date. Dahil ganyan kabagal yung ating justice system. No? Kaya hindi ko alam kung anong gagawin ni... Ito yung first anniversary nung Mahiya Ka Naman campaign, di ba? At ito yung year na wala pa itong ganito katinding economic crisis. No? Kaya very consequential itong magiging state of the nation na ito going into 2028.
Well, as Sir Ronald said, never a dull moment in Philippine politics. Talaga naman, Monday pa lang ang ng usapan natin.
Friday ulit,
Oo, pero kailangan ko magkape muna.
Sige, magpapakape kami. Alright. And with that, thank you very much for sharing your time and your insights with us. As always, that was our political pundit, Mr. Ronald Llamas. Now, don't go away because we still have more matters to discuss right after this quick break. Keep it here on One News.
Good morning once again. You're still watching Morning Matters here on One News. Philippine Coast Guard spokesperson for the West Philippine Sea, Rear Admiral J. Tariela, denied allegations by Chinese state media outlet China Daily that he is linked to the Japanese government. The accusation stemmed from a video claiming his training in Japan was part of Tokyo's so-called whistle or white hull strategy in the West Philippine Sea. Tariela said he earned both his master's and doctorate degrees in Japan, where he studied maritime law enforcement and international law, not propaganda. He described the allegations as an attempt to undermine his credibility. Tariela also defended the presence of journalists embedded in Philippine Coast Guard missions, saying they operate independently and document events as they happen rather than following a scripted narrative.
And joining us now to discuss the latest developments in the West Philippine Sea, including China's recent allegations against Rear Admiral J. Tariela, is Sea Light Director Ray Powell. Ray, thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, Ray.
Thanks.
Good
It's good to be here.
Yeah.
Happy Monday.
Yeah.
Okay, so lots of things to talk about, but let's start with China's allegations that Rear Admiral J. Tariela is linked to Japan. I mean, this is not the first time they've been targeting and attacking Mr. Tariela, but what do you make of this?
I'm shocked that China's state media would be making unfounded allegations against an individual. As you know, I have been the subject of many of these.
You were a CIA spy.
There are so many different variations. And so, you know, I think a lot of this is sort of throwing things against the wall to see if something sticks. And so they're hoping maybe some part of this will stick to Jay.
In our previous discussions we've had, what was common was reports of water cannon incidents. It seems like that we are seeing psychological or educational warfare now. Is this a deliberate tactic?
This is a very, very well-known tactic that the Chinese Communist Party uses to try to discredit its adversaries and also to sort of undermine a political system and take advantage of a free society by sort of, you know, infiltrating it and getting its messages, sort of trying to bubble them up from below. Yeah, so this is very well known.
Well, what China said here against Rear Admiral Tariela is that what he posts appears to be little more than propaganda and carefully crafted victim narratives.
I just can't get over the idea that Chinese state media is accusing someone else of propaganda.
Oh, okay.
So, look, you know, I mean, when you look at a transparency campaign, which is essentially what J. Tariela is championing, the beauty of a transparency campaign is that it uses actual images from actual things that happen at sea. So, you know, what they are doing, for example, when they accuse him of being somehow a tool of the Japanese government, they're making something up out of whole cloth, basically because he received some education in Japan. Whereas what the Philippines Transparency Initiative is doing is posting actual documented evidence.
It's good that you said that. We've seen growing efforts to educate Filipinos about the West Philippine Sea and things like the Ilocano dialogue that was held over the weekend, if I'm not mistaken.
Which was a lot of fun, by the way.
Yes,
I really enjoyed it.
And which brought together the youth, academics, security experts, and government officials. And at the same time, we have also seen a very public disagreement among government officials, in which this includes the recent heated exchange between Senator Robin Padilla and Rear Admiral J. Tariela. So my question here now is that how does this affect the Philippine strategic communication?
Sure. Well, strategic communications in a democracy are really hard, right? Because you're going to have people with different opinions. That is a feature, not a bug in a democracy, right? It makes it easy for China to have one message because they are a top-down authoritarian system. So they don't have a free press. They don't have free expression. So the Philippines does, and that's a good thing. So it's there's the old quote by Winston Churchill that democracy is the worst form of government, except for everything else that's been tried. So
yeah, I know that you're going to mention democracy, but you know, China is closely monitoring the developments in the Philippines, and how important it is for the Philippines to have a united stance on West Philippine Sea? Because this might weaken our, international, I don't know what you call it. This might weaken the international narrative.
Well, so I haven't seen that happening. What I've seen is a lot of actual solidarity with the Philippines on the international stage. So I don't think that that's happening now. Again, you're going to get this kind of thing, but China in some ways is also helping the Philippines by doing silly things like posting the monkey video, which did nothing for China in the Philippines and everything for the resistance to this creeping maritime occupation that China has been embarked on for the past several years.
Well, speaking of that, AI-generated video depicting a Filipino as a monkey. What do you think their calculation was there? And is this a whole new level of, low tactics from China?
It's pretty low. So it's a top-down system, but I don't think every single thing is controlled by Xi Jinping in his master control room.
Okay.
I think this was probably an attempt at China Daily to sort of demean and degrade the Philippines, maybe get a message out that the Filipinos are stupid for resisting China, that they're and of course that they're controlled by the United States and Japan as part of the whole thing. The employment of the monkey imagery obviously is racist and deplorable. And I think that maybe had they thought about it long enough, and for example, you don't see anybody in the Chinese government, Chinese Communist Party, publicly coming out and defending the video. Mostly what they're saying is, well, we don't know how it happened. It was the China Daily who did it. And of course the thing is that is state-run media, right? So their excuse that it's not the government, yeah, it is the government. I mean, that's what state-run means. It's part of the CCP's propaganda department, right? And as we know, that in China, the party is the state.
So do you think that's part of the narrative that, okay, you go ahead, do that, and we will wash our hands?
Yes, and we saw this also with Batanes, right? So these academics all get together. They actually say out loud they're going to do this based on the fact that the Philippines and Japan are having delimitation talks. Magically, they come up with a unanimous conclusion that the Batanes belongs to China. And then the Chinese diplomats, the Chinese Ministry of Foreign Affairs can go, wasn't us, was the academics, right? So this is all part of the strategy to get it into the system so that they can use it to justify other things like their patrols east of Batanes without having to actually take full ownership of it.
Yeah.
I know previously a caricature was made on Xi Jinping, right? And China took offense with that. But for them to use a monkey to depict a Filipino, what does that say?
Well, a couple of things. One is China, of course, does not allow caricatures of Xi Jinping. In the West, there is a long tradition of political caricatures. They are just part of our DNA. Political cartoons. If you look at caricatures, for example, of Donald Trump, they show the sort of the big hair. The ones of Barack Obama, you see big ears. It's a common thing in the West. It's not a new thing for us. But for China, it is absolutely forbidden to make caricatures of Xi Jinping. Making a caricature of a leader is a very, very different thing than depicting an entire race of people as monkeys. That is a completely different thing.
All right, so you said in one of your interviews over the weekend that China is combining pressure at sea with political warfare to influence Filipinos. So what do you mean by political warfare? Can you expound?
Sure. So, when you see what happens at sea and you see these China Coast Guard ships, keeping the Filipinos out of Scarborough Shoal, for example, or pushing them out of Escoda Shoal, or water cannoning and ramming, all of that is also being helped by this campaign inside the Philippines to convince Filipinos that resistance is just futile, right? If you would just stop resisting, your life would be better. You would get more carrots and fewer sticks, right? We could do joint development at Reed Bank. We could let your fishermen back into Scarborough Shoal. All you have to do is sort of succumb to. We'll just make little things that you can succumb to. The whole thing. They could allow exploration at Reed Bank. They could allow fishing at Bao de Masinloc. They could allow that tomorrow, today. They could do it right now, but they want something in return.
Yeah.
And so the political warfare is meant to sort of convince enough Filipinos that you should just give a little bit more and a little bit more. And that's how gray zone and political warfare work together. What they're trying to do is get Filipinos to give up their sovereign rights voluntarily.
Just the term allow is problematic already.
Yeah.
Right? Because that implies that they have sovereignty,
Yeah.
right?
Well, the Foreign Affairs Department has filed multiple diplomatic protests already. But what do you think the government's response should be?
Well, I think the government's response has been really solid. I mean, frankly, it's been very firm. It's been very principled. There hasn't been a lot of daylight between, what the different departments have been saying. There are some people who will say, well, Foreign Affairs doesn't say things strongly enough, but Foreign Affairs is a different department. It has different sort of guidelines as to how it's supposed to, you don't file diplomatic protests on every single thing that happens because you kind of want to keep those in reserve for the things that are most important. But they did for the monkey video, for example. Now, I think that overall the diplomatic, the messaging has really been kind of very consistent, especially over the last couple of weeks. We've seen it be very consistent. I don't think there's been a lot of confusion. Now, of course, in the broader government, you're a multi-party democracy, you have different voices, all of those things are true, but all of those things are expected.
Well, ASEAN and China continue to talk about code of conduct
Oh, yes.
for the last 20 years.
My favorite.
We were just 8 years old, though. Joke. But kidding aside, you have expressed your skepticism about it.
Yes.
Can you tell us more about it? Why?
Look, I mean, part of it is just I've watched this movie for so long, it just goes on and on and on and on. It's like the end of The Lord of the Rings when you think it's over and then there's like another 45 minutes to go, And then I go back to the fundamentals. The fundamentals of the entire case have never changed. China has maximalist demands. They will not subject themselves to any kind of exterior judgment by any other body, right? So they're not going to let some ASEAN council decide whether, a particular action that China takes at sea is legal or illegal. We've already seen this with respect to UNCLOS and the arbitral award.
Yep.
UNCLOS set up the arbitration as the way to negotiate differences, and as soon as it looked like somebody might pass judgment on China, China says, nope, not doing that. And I mean, we've seen it. I
get your point.
If you look at what they have done with the 2002 Declaration on the Conduct of Parties in the South China Sea, they have serially violated almost every article within that document. Freedom of navigation, use of force, restraint, all of those things they have violated, and then they say, oh, now let's come up with another document that we can serially violate, right? So the biggest thing for China is they do not want to be subject to somebody else's jurisdiction.
Right.
And the entire idea behind an enforceable code of conduct is that there would be jurisdiction.
Yeah, because for them, bilateral is power. There
Bilateral-
can be no other forces involved.
Or if we can just refer everything to this magic, code of conduct negotiation happening down here in Jakarta, or actually right now here in Manila, if we can just do that, then we can sort of take everybody's eyes off the fact of what we're actually doing at sea right now and say, oh, that's for the code of conduct negotiations.
Right, because just on the 10th anniversary of the 2016 arbitral ruling, here goes China making claims that Batanes is a natural geographic extension of Taiwan, which means they also own Batanes, they claim Batanes, but they say this is in response to the delimitation talks between the Philippines and Japan. Why are they so threatened by this dialogue?
First of all, I don't think they are. I think that was entirely pretext. Actually, what they want is they want to be outside of the first island chain. They have their patrols now that are now outside of the first island chain, outside of their own 10-dash line claim, right? But how do you justify that? How do you justify all of a sudden claiming jurisdiction of the waters east of Batanes? You can't do it unless you do something about Batanes, because the land gives you the sea rights, right? So your exclusive economic zone is measured from land. Well, Batanes is the land that's closest to the place they want to be patrolling. So the only way they can justify it is to say, well, maybe Batanes belongs to us. Now, the government's not quite ready to say that because that would be really explosive, so they left it up to their academics, and maybe the government will come in later and say, well, you know, we have some pretty smart academics here in China, and they make a pretty good case.
But how far do you think China will push this? Do you see them actually formalizing it and turning it into a policy that, you know, we claim Batanes?
I would not be surprised. Now, I think that's a big step because Batanes has actual Filipinos. You know, it's not an uninhabited reef, right? So that would be a very big step for them to go that way. They also claim Pagasa, which has actual Filipinos, but those Filipinos actually came in later than their 9-dash line claim. So to claim Batanes by the government would be a huge deal. But honestly, the academics are a pretty big deal already because, again, there is not such a thing as an independent university system down there.
No academic freedom.
There is no such thing, exactly.
So how important or how significant is Batanes?
Oh, strategically, extremely. I mean, so that it is basically the northernmost part of the Philippines, of course, that borders what we call the Bashi Channel, which is a major strategic waterway. And if you're trying to isolate Taiwan, which China is, then control of the Bashi Channel is crucial. So that's why I say they want to be out there anyway. The claim on Batanes is just this veneer of legal authority that they're trying to attach to it to explain why they should be out there.
One piece of a bigger puzzle.
Yeah.
Well, since we're talking about the arbitral ruling, 10 years into the arbitral ruling, do you think that the Philippines has done more than enough to assert our right?
I think what the Philippines has done has been amazing. I mean, really. Now, the Philippines' basic problem is that China is a lot bigger, right? It has a lot more ships, a lot larger ships. It's just a lot more powerful. So the Philippines has been leaning into its legal and public cases to say that this is unjust. That is part of a long-term strategy. It will not evict China from the West Philippine Sea. And people I get asked this all the time, how can we get the Chinese out? It's going to take a lot of patience. The arbitral award gives the Philippines the principled, moral, legal authority to say this does not belong to China. And that case is going to last a very long time, which is what the Philippines is going to need. Because what we're looking forward to is sometime in the future, changes in the Chinese government that will make them think to themselves, why are we pushing so hard on this part of the water when it's costing us so much else on the international stage? We have bigger problems. We need to take a step back. And the Philippines will still be there holding the proof from the arbitral award that says, and what you have done up until now is unjust. Now, China may not at that point admit it was unjust, but they may start to change their calculus as to what's in their national interest, given all the other, they've got huge problems with debt, they've got demographic time bomb that's going off. There are lots of things that are real estate crises. There's lots of things that China is going to have to worry about in the future.
Economic sanctions.
and they're going to at some point they're going to look and say, is it still worth it for us to be pushing so hard in the West Philippine Sea?
Well, you did say, Ray, that the 2016 arbitral ruling provides a solid legal footing basis for the Philippines, right? But on the ground and in the waters, how far is the Philippines from building a credible and formidable deterrent against China?
Yeah, it's still got a long way to go. And I mean, Secretary Teodoro has said it, very recently that the Philippines is behind in its modernization. And so right now it is using this moment of national resilience and international support to try to catch up. And so, but it's got a long way to go, but I mean, at least it's moving in the right direction. So, and it is getting that international support. We're continuing to see new reports of additional ships being given by foreign nations, radars, surveillance systems, all these things. So you've got the international support behind you, plus you've got a new commitment on the part of the government that, hey, this is really important. And a government can't do that unless the people of the country are behind the government, right? A government is ultimately only going to do what its people demand. And that's where, back to transparency, when you show people what the threat is, then they get it. If you show them a water cannon hitting a small wooden boat, people say, oh, I understand now, right? before you could say, hey, bad things are happening at sea, and people go, oh, I don't really see anything, but now everybody understands.
So you think that Commodore J. Tariela is on the right path on allowing media in the West Philippine Sea, or at least in Bajo de Masinloc, to witness what is happening there, for instance, water cannon incident?
Well, I think the Philippine government made a decision that was extremely brave. And actually very innovative, actually, if you think about it in big terms. When we started Sea Light, one of the things that the assumptions we went in to it with is that governments actually are not really good at putting out information. I've worked for a government for 35 years. I know of what I speak. But the Philippines has been defying that to a large extent. And actually other countries are starting to pay attention. You see now the Japan Coast Guard and the Taiwan Coast Guard are starting to put out more information. You're starting to see the United States start to say, okay, how can we kind of get into this? So I think the Philippines is actually kind of leading the way into a gray zone tactic. So I like the term gray zone. I know the Philippine government doesn't like it. They like the term ICAD, illegal, coercive, aggressive, deceptive. I have no problem with the term ICAD. I'm a former military officer. I do acronyms. But I like the term gray zone because it just shows how China likes to fill in the little gaps it sees between the things that we think are sort of binary. So we think peace or war, legal or illegal,
but there's this one,
civilian or military. They just sort of use that gray area in between and say, here's a fishing boat that doesn't actually fish, but it actually works with the China Coast Guard to swarm Philippine vessels. But it says it's a fishing boat. The gray area.
Just like
that
the water
like
cannon incident, it's not
yes,
weapon.
Exactly. Why would you, is this act? I got that. I used to get that question all the time. Are these attacks that would invoke the Mutual Defense Treaty?
No.
China kind of knows that the Philippines isn't going to go there, right? Because it's a water cannon. It's not a bullet.
Gray zone tactic.
Exactly.
Well, Ray, we are counting down the days till the President's fifth State of the Nation address. 2 years ago, I remember he delivered a strong message where he said that the Philippines will not yield and waver when it comes to its rights in the West Philippine Sea. Last year, he said the Philippines is a friend to all and an enemy to none. What are you expecting from the President's SONA this year? Should he use this as a stage to deliver a stronger message?
I mean, look, first of all, far be it from an American to tell a foreign leader what to say, right? So I'm not going to do that. But he has been actually really, really resolute throughout his, really, I would say since about 6 months into his term, when he really started to sort of focus in on this issue. He's been extremely resolute. So I would be very surprised if he stopped being as resolute as he has been. For example, his speech at Shangri-La a year and a half ago, or actually 2 years ago, was really a tour de force. And so I would be surprised if he didn't continue that tradition.
Well, very quickly right now, do you think that it is high time that the government again to file another case in the International Criminal Court this time around about environmental
Yeah, I know that Justice Carpio and others have been sort of arguing for that. Look, I think that international law is clearly the Philippines' friend. Because China's claims and its actions are so grossly illegal under the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea, it is very much in the Philippines. The Philippines can be almost guaranteed to win any of these cases as long as it's as solid a case as they put together in 2013, which obviously was a sweeping success. So the Philippines would win any case. It's honestly a tactical decision as to when or how you'd want to file that.
All right.
All right. And on that note, thank you so much for joining us this Monday, Ray. That was an interesting discussion. As always, please do come back because we still have a lot more questions for you. But for now, thank you very much for your time and your insights. That was Sea Light Director Ray Powell.
Thanks.
Thank you. All right, that wraps up today's episode of Morning Matters. We hope we have given you just the right start to your morning. I'm Angela Lagunzad-Castro.
Let's make the day matter. I'm Pauline Verzosa, and we'll see you again tomorrow. Kapatid, we are One News.
All sides,
all the time.